Thank you so much for including Lifetime in this webinar. This is the second webinar that we've done together since the pandemic started. And I feel it's very important to have these kinds of discussions and to bring panelists like Stephen to everyone so that you can understand how, despite the fact that there are a number of industries that are struggling through this pandemic, the one thing that is doing well and surviving and really making a statement and will help with recovery is the real estate segment. So with that, assuming that with all the participants that we have here, that not everybody knows who Lifetime Developments is. I know a fair number of the people that are on do, but I felt it would be important just to give a quick background on our company. So Lifetime's been around for over 30 years. It was a company that was started by my father-in-law and by one of the other principals of Lifetime, Mel Pearl. And we started in the low-rise sector and built a number of subdivisions in the early years. And then about 15 to 16 years ago, we recognized that the growth in Toronto was really going to happen in the downtown core, and especially with high-rise developments. And that's when we changed our focus from low-rise to high-rise. Over the last 10 years, we've built over 7,000 homes. We've been involved in over 20 different projects. Sam, I don't think I have control of the screen. So let's jump to the next slide.
Okay.
So just to give you a flavor for some of the projects that we've been involved with, the Yorkville is a development that we built at Bay and Davenport. It's a beautiful building that's 32 stories. It's the image that you have in the upper left corner, and it's the one with the pop out in the tower form. We're also one of the developers that was involved in the Four Seasons, which had a dramatic change on what people considered was Yorkville. So with the expansion or the relocation of Four Seasons to the east side of Bay Street, really pulled Yorkville out from what people originally associated with an Avenue Road neighborhood to something that extended well beyond Avenue Road. We're also partners in Bisha Hotel. So this is a development that we launched back in 2009, believe it or not. It's a hotel and residence, and it's a hugely successful project, one that we're very proud of, and we continue to own and be a part of the hotel component as well. M5V was built at King and Blue Jay Way as well, just around the corner from Bisha. Bond Condominium was the old Alice Fazuli site on Adelaide Street, Adelaide and John. Index is a development in the financial core at Bay and Adelaide. And Karma Condos is another development we did at Yonge and College. So these are some of the developments. I want to give a quick update on some of the construction projects that we have. So we have 4 projects that are under construction right now, and those projects did continue with construction through the lockdown. So first, next slide. So White House is a development at Yonge and Eglinton, and it is 31 stories. We actually started occupancy 2 weeks ago. So we're starting to bring homeowners into the building. It's got 70,000 square feet of commercial space along Yonge Street as well. And if you drive Yonge and Eglinton, it's from what it used to be, if you recall, this is immediately south of the post office. It used to be a development that was 1 story, but it was have 1 below grade story and 1 above grade story. You'd have to go up and downstairs. So this had a major change on the street, and should be some great retail as well. With this development, we've been able to go back to the city when we were mid-construction, and we were able to get an extra 2 stories. So it was originally zoned for 29 stories, and then we got the extra 2 stories. So with that, we've launched about 6 months ago, the extra 2 stories that we added to the building, and we still have some of those units available for purchase. Next slide. So just to give everyone an indication of what's available, there's a little over 10 units left at the building, actually 10 units. And then we wanted to share some of the incentives that we currently have running for this project with you. And I'll do this for the 4 projects that we have under construction right now. These are all Baker projects as well. So if you have any questions about these developments, please feel free to reach out to Barbara and Jeff and their team to get more information on these sites. Next slide. This is Liberty Market Tower. So back in 2004, we acquired a fairly large property in Liberty Village. And it's something that we've been involved with in its evolution over a 15-year period. This is the 4th phase that we have at the property. So we originally started with Liberty Market Building, which was a commercial building, then moved on to Liberty Market Lofts, which was a live-work building. Now we're at Liberty Market Tower. And this is a 28-story building that we're actually planning to occupy at the end of this year. So it's a 28-story building. We are now on the 24th story with regards to forming, and we should be topping off the building in the next few months. So a very exciting project, and it's a great neighborhood as well. Next slide. So jumping to Panda. So Panda is at Yonge and Dundas. This is the old world's biggest bookstore site. Also a 30-story building, so very similar in height to Liberty Market Tower, and also at 24 stories. So we'll be occupying this building as well at the end of the year. And we have a few units left at this building as well. And those are upper floor penthouse suites. Next slide. Can we go back one slide? Thanks. So finally, the 4th project that we have under construction right now is XO Condos. This project is located at King and Dufferin, and we only have 15 units available at this building. So also a very exciting project that's just on the edge of Liberty Village and King West. And again, here are the incentives, and if you need additional information, please reach out to Barbara. I'm also very excited to announce or to give some information on some of our pipeline project as well. Next slide. Next slide. So happy to announce that we will be launching XO2 later this year. It's coming summer of 2021. So this is phase 2 of our King and Dufferin project. This will be a 19-story building with 400 units. This again is another Baker-led project, so we're very excited about this. If you have been to King and Dufferin, what I would have to say is that with the redevelopment of these 2 corners, this is the southwest corner and the northeast corner. You're looking at the northeast corner right now. This will have a very dramatic change on this intersection. Next slide. 36 Eglinton is a property that we acquired about a year ago, and are in the process of rezoning it for 65 stories. We've submitted our application. So this is on Eglinton, just west of Yonge Street. You can see the RioCan office tower that's right at the corner of Yonge and Eglinton. But very more exciting actually is the idea that Oxford has just recently announced their plans to redevelop Canada Square. And that will be a huge development that will add additional community resources to that neighborhood, including a large park. So this property or this building will be overlooking that park. So that's a very exciting set of news that we just learned about a month ago. Next slide. This is a development at River and Dundas in Regent Park. We're immediately next door to the Mercedes dealership, if you are familiar with the area. So this is along Dundas Street. This is actually looking north of the site. So the street that's in the picture is actually River Street, and you're looking south on River Street towards our development. This will be a 34-story building. We're working with Rudy Wallman's office on the architecture, and it should be approved in the next few months. So we're looking forward to bringing this project out in 2022. Next slide. I think we skipped over one slide there. If you want to go back one slide. 49 Jacks Avenue is actually our head office site. So that's the site that I'm taking this Zoom call from. We're proposing a 29-story building. If you're familiar with our head office location, or Jacks Avenue, it is just south of St. Clair on the east side of Yonge. It's a nice street. Shockingly, we're the only office on this street, and we're a legal non-conforming use on this street. I don't think anybody imagined that there would be an office building immediately right next door to the park that's right here at David A. Balfour Park. So it's a great location. We'll have spectacular views over the park, but also of the downtown core, because we're at the top. If you recall, when you come south on Yonge Street, it dips down quite quickly when you get past St. Clair, and we're at the top of that ridge, so the views will be spectacular. And we're working with David Ponderini and Hariri Ponderini's office on this development. Next slide. Another site that we've been working on for surprisingly over 2 years with the city of Markham is Panda Markham. We're actually at the end of our zoning exercise with the city, and we're hoping to have our approval within the next few months. It will be a 4-tower development. It will be over 1,950 units, towers ranging in height from 34 stories to 37 stories, and over 1.8 million square feet of density. Again, hopefully we can bring this one out next year, at least phase 1. And the last slide that I'm going to share regarding our pipeline is a development that we're working on right now with Diamond Corp. And this is at 200 Queens Quay West, immediately south of the CN Tower and Roundhouse Park. And this is a 71-story building and a 41-story building, which you see in the rendering in gold. It will have 1,482 units. And this is something that we are in the midst of our zoning exercise with the city and working with the community on the plans for this. And we're hoping to get our approval as quickly as possible as well. So in sharing our pipeline, what I wanted to express to everyone is that as a developer, we feel very fortunate to be in the real estate industry. We feel very fortunate with where things are going in our sector, and we're very bullish on how 2021 is going to roll out. There's been a lot of concerns about 2020, and we saw that the numbers for 2020 were a lot higher than everyone had expected, and we expect 2021 to be even stronger than 2020. So with that, I'm going to introduce our key speaker. If we could go to the next slide. Stephen Green. So thank you very much. I feel very fortunate to have Stephen with us today. Stephen is one of two senior partners at Green and Spiegel and is certified as a specialist in immigration law with the Law Society of Ontario. With over 30 years of experience in all areas of Canadian immigration, Stephen has established himself as a leading practitioner in immigration law and an expert and frequent speaker on the subject matter. So thank you very much, Stephen, for joining us today.
Great. Thank you, Brian, Barbara, Jeff, and I look forward to speaking to everyone. And I hope at the end of my discussion, you will see how enthusiastic and, using your words, how bullish I am on the Canadian economy and immigration and real estate. So I look forward to giving everyone a little bit of information. And our agenda today, which will be, I guess, coming up on the next slide. One more. Next one would be great. Great. Perfect. So what I want to do today is just to talk a little bit about immigration and what I see sort of the future, a little bit of the past and how things have, developed to where we are, and then give you some information for your clients on the various immigration programs for people that are interested in coming to Canada. So the next slide, what I'm looking at really is the levels. What is the government going to be doing with respect to immigration? Every year around November, our Minister of Immigration is required to tell Canadians what they're going to do, what's their plan. And for 2021, the government of Canada not only was, looking at how they think the way immigration is going to go, but they added over 100,000 more people to their plan. So we're looking at about 410,000 people that the government of Canada will hopefully invite for 2021. Which is a huge increase, probably the largest that we've ever had in Canadian history. And it's important to understand that unlike perhaps our friends south of the border, where they have one political party that wants immigration and one political party that does not, all three of our major political parties understand the importance of immigration to our economy and want large numbers of immigration. You'll see, some of the statistics with respect to the GTA and how, the numbers have increased here last year. And, the government understands that, and they look at immigration being very large in the three areas of really Vancouver, Toronto, in Montreal. And they understand that, and that's why they've created some special programs in areas where people aren't locating as much as the government had hoped. And we'll talk about these provincial programs. But also, I think it's really important for you to understand that there's a very, very large group of Canadians that are abroad that, because of the pandemic, because of the political situation in some of the countries that they're currently residing in, they are returning back to Canada. So I think you have an amazing opportunity, not necessarily to look just at new immigrants that are coming, but Canadians. And what I bring to your attention is Hong Kong. Hong Kong has the largest expat population of Canadians living abroad. And a lot of these Canadians now are looking to return back home because they understand the concept of working from home. They understand the political situation in Hong Kong is changing, and they're looking at coming back. So there's a whole new market, I think, of Canadians returning back to Canada. Students, prior to the pandemic, we had the largest increase in students ever in Canadian history. there were approximately 750,000 foreign students across Canada studying here. And remember that a foreign student, unlike Canadians or permanent residents, they pay a lot of money to go to school. You're looking at, for example, the University of Toronto paying between $30,000 to $40,000 a year to come as a foreign student. If that child gets immigration, it reduces down to what our fees are, $7,000, something like that. So that is also a very, very large market for you. And the government recognizes that foreign students that are here are an amazing group of people that they believe, and I agree with them, will be amazing immigrants and eventual Canadians to be in Canada. So it's another market for you, because these are generally dependents of very high net worth individuals or high net worth individuals themselves that want to do higher education, masters, PhDs. So it's quite interesting to see that market for you. And I really believe that once the travel bans start to lift, and we'll talk about those in a second, that it's going to be a wonderful market here, almost to the time I recall back, prior to 1997 in Hong Kong, when companies like yourself used to go there and there were lineups and people were fighting to execute contracts to purchase real estate inside of Canada. The banks were a little different in those days, where anyone that was a foreigner could pretty much get up to 65% financing by just showing that they had a deposit on a piece of real estate in Canada. But I think, things are looking very bright with respect to the market and everyone that is either moving back that were former Canadians or people that are now looking to Canada as a place to move their family. So let's talk about the current situation today and immigration. Who can travel to Canada? Well, right now, because of the pandemic, there is a travel ban for anyone that wants to come and visit us. So visitors are not allowed in. If I want to come to Niagara Falls, I can't come. However, if you are a Canadian citizen, you absolutely have the right to come back. If you are a permanent resident, you have the absolute right to come back. And if you are considered an essential worker, meaning you're going to be working perhaps in the automotive industry, you're going to be working in logistics to move our food around, truckers, those people are allowed to come into Canada. So when the government announced the fact that there was this ban, the ban really only applied to people that wanted to come here as tourists. And it was interesting because when it started back in, can't believe it's been a year, March of last year, the government really didn't know what to do. And quite candidly, and I commend them for it, they pretty much closed everything until they could figure out what to do. And it really affected people that had bought summer homes in the Muskoka areas, in the beautiful, Laurentians out in northern BC. They couldn't come and visit their property. So a lot of people now are looking at immigration because they have bought property and they want to make sure that in the future, they will always have the right to enter Canada. So let's be a little more specific on who's exempt. You'll look at the next slide and you will see a list of people that are exempt from this travel ban. Again, in March of last year, pretty much anyone that was an immediate family member of a Canadian or a permanent resident. So if I was married to an American citizen in March of last year or April of last year, that American couldn't get in. But the government, after studying, listening to Canadians, they amended that now. So extended family members are allowed to come in with Canadians, with permanent residents. You see, students are allowed to come in because, again, the government understands how important students are. The banks understand how important students are. Schools understand how important students are. And I really put out to you, you should understand how important students are that are here currently studying and ones that want to come and study. And again, you know, you can look at that list later, but those are the people that are permitted to come into Canada right now during this travel ban. But again, these are temporary people that are coming for specific purposes other than just visiting Niagara Falls. So let's now talk about the first category of permanent residents. And permanent residents on the next slide, that is a person that wants to come here and live here. We use the word permanent resident interchangeably with immigrants. So if you say, hi, I want to be an immigrant, or hi, I want to be a permanent resident, it's the same thing. And the government introduced a program about 6 years ago called Express Entry. And what it's supposed to do is to permit people that are interested in coming and immigrating to Canada to get here quickly. It was really difficult prior to this express entry system for certain countries. For example, if you were a national of India, it could take you 7 years to get here. Iranian national, 7 years. Chinese national, 7 years. The government said that was silly because it wasn't meeting our urgent labor needs, because things obviously changed over 7 years. They recognized that they were buying real estate. And they're saying it's not fair to make them wait 7 years. How can a developer go ahead and sell something to an impending immigrant and they're telling them, oh, you can live in it in 7 years? So the government threw out that program and they introduced this express entry. And people are getting immigration, if they are interested in this program, within about 12 months. And that's pretty amazing based on comparing it to 7 years. And the way it works is that you indicate to the Canadian government that you have certain skills. And if the government likes what you have, they invite you to apply for immigration, and they are meeting that 12-month target in about 90% of all the cases. And you basically fill out a web form, a document, and you go into this pool where there's about 180,000 people. And every 2 to 3 weeks, the government looks in that pool and invites, it was last year about 3,000 every 2 weeks to 3 weeks. Starting in this year, they're increasing it to about 5,000 every 2 to 3 weeks. And how do you get invited? The government looks at your age, your education. Have you ever studied in Canada? Have you ever worked in Canada? Do you have any close family in Canada? Do you have a job offer in Canada? They look at all those things. And if you have the right stuff, they invite you. But it's interesting. And again, concentrating on who your market should be, there's a program called the Canada Experience Class. And that is a group of people that have Canadian experience. And 85% of the people that are invited out of that pool are already working in Canada. So again, when you're looking at your market, you should be looking at the people that are here on temporary documents working, because they have the highest likelihood of being invited out of that pool to become an immigrant. And again, it's important for them because of the non-resident speculation tax. If you get your immigration while you're here, you obviously have the ability to waive that 15% tax. So it's important that, you look at the people that are here, and we call that, in our business, the low-hanging fruit, where I don't have to travel to Hong Kong, to India to sell Canada and how great we are. I can do it right here in my backyard. The next group is called the Provincial Nominee Program on the next slide. And what that is that the government wants to make sure that not everyone is moving to Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. And they've given the various provinces the ability to select people whom they want. So if you're thinking of moving to Prince Edward Island, they'll have a special program out in Prince Edward Island. Nova Scotia has a special program. Ontario has a special program. British Columbia has a special program. And we use those programs when perhaps the person can't qualify into the express entry system. Maybe their English isn't good enough, because English is really important in express entry. In express entry, they look at people like myself and they say, oh, Stephen, you're such an old person, because it's really orientated towards people in their 30s. So the provinces have their own program. And again, the nice thing about the provincial program is that if you are buying real estate in that program, in the sense that I'm buying a new home, I'm going into the provincial nominee system, and the province says they want you, and they select you, and then you file your immigration, you are exempt from that 15% tax as well. So we had a client that was buying this beautiful condo, was here on a work permit, a CEO of the company. He didn't want to, pay that 15% tax. We put him in the provincial nominee program. They selected him. He applied for immigration, and he got exempted from that 15% tax. So again, it's important that you know that, because you would want to give that advice to your clients that are inside of Canada working. So that's the provincial programs. The next one is called the Startup Visa Program. And what that is that the Canadian government looked around the world and they saw what was going on in Silicon Valley with IT and really cool, innovative things. They saw what was going on in Israel, what was going on in India, and they said, why can't we create an immigration program that will be innovative, that will create jobs for Canadians, and really let that business be a footprint in Canada for cool startups? Like, why can't we bring the Ubers of the world to Canada? And for those of you that, are specializing in the GTA, that Toronto has become the artificial intelligence center of the world. Like, we are number one in artificial intelligence. And we created more jobs in the software industry in Toronto than they did in San Francisco and Palo Alto. It's just amazing how much the IT sector has become such a specialty within Canada, and especially within Toronto. And Montreal has their own, and Vancouver has their own, but Toronto really is the leader in this artificial intelligence and IT area. So people that have really cool startup ideas outside of Canada can bring them to Canada. But the government was smart in this industry. And you'll see on the next slide, what they did was they said, we as a government, we don't understand startups. We don't know a good idea from a bad idea. So they reached out to 3 organizations found in Canada, and those are venture capital groups, angel investor groups, and incubators. And they said to those 3 groups, if you, as a venture capital fund, as an angel investor group, think that this really cool, neat idea is great for Canada, then you give that cool, neat idea people a letter of support, and they can apply for immigration to Canada. But we want to make sure that, you've got some skin in the game, as they say, and you have to put a certain amount of money in that cool new startup. So venture capital groups have to put $200,000 into these cool startups. The angel groups do less. They have to put $75,000. And the business incubators that think it's a cool idea don't have to put anything into them. However, they are usually universities that are incubators. U of T has one. University of British Columbia has one. And if they say you've got a cool, neat idea, then, they will give you that letter of support. And then again, for those of you that are involved perhaps in commercial real estate, these are great places for you to reach out to, because you would create, an office, a footprint for them. And then of course, for their workers and things like that to live. So we put that out there. And then on the next slide is just a really good diagram of how this program works, where if you were Uber, you would be a founder. And then what happens is that the founder generally doesn't have a lot of money. They're the ones that have put the blood, the sweat into this cool idea called Uber. They're looking for high net worth individuals, as well as individuals that can sort of help them in this startup concept. So they get together with a group of people where you may get a banker that will come with the founder. You may get a CEO of a former company. And generally they are high net worth individuals, and they put together a great idea called, I'll use Uber again. They make a pitch to one of these organizations. The organization says, great, we like you. Here's a letter of support. And they get their immigration to Canada, along with the ability to start this business inside of Canada, and you can live anywhere you want. So it's a pretty great idea. And that's what many of our high net worth individuals or CEOs that don't meet the express entry system or don't meet the provincial nominee system, they go into this program. And once you get your immigration to Canada under whatever program you decided to use, be it the express entry, the startup visa, the nomination, then, as you'll see on the next slide, you are eligible to get a Canadian passport. We give Canadian passports to individuals that have resided in Canada for 3 out of 5 years. And if you were here perhaps even earlier working, you can get certain bonuses to get your passport earlier. But the nice thing about, one of the nice things about Canadian citizenship is that you do not have to give up your former citizenship. And it was really interesting. The way that sort of came around was that in the early 60s, the greatest number of nationals applying for immigration were Italian nationals. So there was a huge influx of Italian nationals applying for immigration to Canada. And what the politicians found was that the large group of Italian nationals at that time would have to give up their Italian citizenship for Canadian citizenship. And that just wasn't happening. So on February 14th, 1977, we are a country of love, Valentine's Day, they changed the Citizenship Act to permit any individual to have as many passports as they want. So Canada permits dual passports, no issue. But you'll look at the second point here, very interesting. Unlike the United States and many other countries, they tax you based on having a passport of their country. So if you're an American citizen, you pay tax for life to Uncle Sam if you have your passport. In Canada, we do not. We only pay tax if we are a resident of Canada. So a lot of people with respect to a tax planning concept is they acquire their Canadian passport and then they go ahead and they say, you know what, maybe I will become a non-resident for tax purposes, yet I have my Canadian citizenship. So again, there's a great opportunity to do some great tax planning to, purchase your real estate, put it in proper trust, and you could really save your clients a lot of money. So that's my general comments on immigration. Again, I am very positive with it. The government, I can tell you, during this pandemic has really moved mountains to help people figure out the immigration system and made it easier for them to get immigration because they know how important it is. And thank you.
That's great, Stephen. That was really informative. It's a very, very hot topic in our industry. I've spoken at so many functions prior to COVID where we would talk about the fundamentals of the real estate market. And one of the things we would always say is immigration is, fundamental to our economy and it's not going to shrink. And then COVID hit. And of course, that went a bit sideways on us, but it's really encouraging to see, a pathway to getting that immigration back up to prior to COVID levels and even higher than that. there's a few questions, Stephen, if you don't mind, I can fire them off to you, and maybe you could give some insight. There's a few people have forwarded some questions. One of the questions actually that I'll start out with, because I've had quite a bit of experience, how effective is the immigration policy that steers people towards, say, living in PEI? And they moved to PEI for 2 years, but then after that 2 years, we're finding many of the people on this call, brokers on this call, are actually in PEI, selling Toronto projects that are going to be available in 2 or 3 years after they're constructed. Has that been effective in populating those sort of areas?
Great question, Jeff. In Prince Edward Island, it's interesting you take that as an example. They have been overly successful. It was interesting. My firm created the investor program for the province of Prince Edward Island. We helped funnel approximately $400 million to that province. And it was very successful there. Many people from all over the world moved to Prince Edward Island. And again, retention was a big issue for them. They were very concerned. They tried to develop their nomination process to, make retention a big component of it. They were very, very successful in it. But again, if someone just like you or I, we decide we want to move to Vancouver, we want to move to PEI, we're there a year, 2, 3, and we say, you know what, PEI is beautiful, but now I'd like to maybe move my family to Toronto or Vancouver. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. So yes, retention is an important component of all the provincial programs. PEI is a great example of how successful they were and are. And that's what they look at, retention.
Great. There's another question. What are the pathways for high net worth individuals to enter Canada?
Well, it's interesting. The government of Canada about 25 years ago had a very good program called the Investor Program, which was a federal program where in those days, a private developer like Brian could go ahead and become registered, and he could go and sell condo units, and the people that bought the condo unit would get immigration. What happened, however, that there were many developers that weren't as professional as Brian's company, and they didn't proceed with their projects. And it gave Canada a very bad name out there. So the government stopped that. And then they said, oh, you had to go into a general federal fund, the money. So they still had it. And then the feds would release the money to provinces for the provinces to loan out. But Jason Kenney, when he was the Minister of Immigration at that time, he decided to cancel that program. So there is no passive investment program for high net worth individuals federally in Canada. Quebec has one, but again, it's very restricted. It takes approximately 5 years, so their program has not been successful from a timing factor. I recently wrote the Department of Immigration saying, I think we should bring back the investor program in a limited way to help us get money back in our country with respect to COVID, and funneling a lot of that money to, developments where we're looking for, I don't like to use the word, low income housing, but some type of development to support that, to really help the community. And we're waiting to see. But basically now, high net worth individuals can use the startup visa program. There are provinces that have high net worth programs like British Columbia, Ontario, New Brunswick has one, PEI has one, but you have to look at them and be very careful because a lot of them start with giving the person a work permit to come and start your business. And I'm not a big fan of those. So again, you have to see what suits the high net worth individual the best.
Great. I have another question, and I guess this is Brian. Maybe you and Barbara and Stephen can sort of, and it's come up a bunch, and that is, prior to COVID, we had really strong immigration, and we had an undersupply and undersupply of new homes and a backlog of permits and stuff in the city. So if the numbers go to where you're talking, Stephen, I guess the three of you, where do you think these people are all going to move? Will the government, in concert, streamline the approval processes? Are they going to open up the green belt, or is it just going to be a continued undersupply and too many people looking to live in Toronto? I'll throw that out to any of you. Brian, maybe you could give your perspective.
Sure. So first off, as far as streamlining process with the city, it's something that we and the city talk about on a regular basis, but I don't think it's really happening as quickly as we'd like. And so anything that is approved or is going through a zoning process right now is that much more valuable to the market. So for that reason, everyone recognizes that there is an undersupply in the market. And the only way to improve that situation is to continue to look for new development opportunities and to support the approvals. So there are a number of developers that are trying as hard as we can to push those developments. And that's why we were deemed essential when the pandemic hit, and we've never really shut down our office through the pandemic. So we've had to be here in order to not only focus on the sites that we have under construction, but also to focus on those sites that are in the process of going through zoning. What it means ultimately is there's going to be a short supply, and it's going to continue to be a short supply. So we feel that anything that is for sale now or for sale in the near future will continue to see an increase in its value over time.
Absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head, where there has to be streamline in the process of approving new developments. We have to be able to bring more product to the market, because the reality is we can only sell what is available. And if there is more demand than supply, prices will continue to rise.
As far as immigration goes, the government has made that commitment of 410,000. They very much want to meet it. They don't want to be embarrassed. They have spent a lot of time this past year understanding how important technology is to the process of immigration. So they're using as much technology as they can. So I think you will see things speeding up a lot. Right now, the government likes to use, and I say this quite strongly, the COVID excuse. Well, I don't accept that anymore. Things have slowed down because of COVID. You and I and all the people on this call, you've managed to do your business and do it better than you did before. So I don't accept COVID as a reason things are slowing down from a processing standpoint. And I think the government now, certainly the minister's office, understands that. And I believe that you'll see things being, pushed out. But Jeff, I want to answer one question that, I just saw. Someone says that, you mentioned there is no program for passive investments. How about buying a unit for their own principal residence? No. Buying real estate does not assist you with respect to any of the immigration programs. However, if you need to buy real estate for a commercial venture as part of your business program, then of course, because that is an active part of your business. But buying and coming to me and saying, "Hi, Stephen, I just bought a beautiful condo for $2-3 million." Unfortunately, that's a great business decision, but unfortunately for immigration, it doesn't have anything to do with it.
Okay, great.
Jeff, I would also add, though, to that, we recognize that immigration is a huge key to the continued demand for real estate. But at the same time, I think we're also seeing a lot of people feel the need to pull their investments out of other products and put it into real estate, where it is more stable and more secure, and that there's opportunities for growth.
Yeah, I agree. I think I got one more question. This would be for you, Stephen. How can you reach out to foreign investors with respect to purchasing business, commercial, or residential real estate.
Okay, so it's really interesting. All of the embassies and high commissions abroad have commercial officers. They all have great programs they offer, be it for education, be it for artificial intelligence, be it for real estate. So I would reach out to them and see what programs they have in the coming year. I recently just took part in the Hong Kong Canada Business Chamber of Commerce, and we just did a whole program for 2 days. Part of it was immigration, part of it was doing business, part of it was, you know, there were people dealing with income tax. So all over the world, there are commercial officers that work for you and I, and they can give you the stats. They can tell you how to reach out. They will tell you where your target market is. And again, you know, to me, Hong Kong is one of the biggest target markets right now with respect to Canadians that are coming back here.
Yeah, we certainly have been doing a lot of virtual shows lately through COVID. Prior to that, I know I've worked with many people that are on this call that have offices or networks in Hong Kong. Very, very hotbed of activity for immigration. There's probably a bunch more questions, and I think what we'll do is we've recorded this presentation. We will get a copy of it out to everyone that's on this Zoom. And the residual questions, I think what we'll do is we can get them to Stephen or to Barbara and Brian, whoever they're directed to, and maybe we could you know, answer some of those questions in writing when we send out the when we send out the presentation to you. It's been incredibly informative. It's very, very positive news, and I think it will have a real big impact on our business in the next 12 months in the near term and going forward. It's been incredible to have you on here, Stephen. We thank you for taking time to share this information with us. Brian, as always, we thank you, and Anastasia for being with us today. And I think on behalf of Baker, we want to thank everybody that has joined us today. And we look forward to working with you on the lifetime projects that Brian talked about. I know a bunch of questions were how we can get price lists and inventory for those sites. So we will be getting that to you very quickly as well. So thanks everyone for coming, and be careful in the snow and enjoy your day. And thank you very much again, Stephen, for your incredible insight.
Thank you for inviting me, and everyone have a great day. Stay safe and have a good lunch.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Barbara, Jeff.
Thank you so much.